You just think we just, whatever happens, we just shit another player. And everything's going to be perfect. All of our fans think that. You all think that. That's what you write about.
You don't want to be here. There's a specific reason. Not really, I think we did a poor job recruiting if guys are coming in and immediately walking out the door because it was something different than what they thought it would be. We lied to them during recruiting, or we sold them on a dream that wasn't true.
Yeah, right now we have the atmosphere of a JC softball game. That's what we are, a JC softball team. As long as, it's not whether you win or lose. It's like the team that wins is the one that has the most fun. That crap like that. All this stuff that's contaminated America, where they give every kid a trophy and they don't keep scoring Little League anymore.
Now, that's also a second in the West, baby.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I don't like it. It's the only time we're ever getting excited about second. From now on, it's first, okay?
Winning the SEC probably is harder than winning the national championship. Do you know that?
Well, how about them fucking dogs? My language.
Turn that damn jukebox on! Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and Cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.
Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. Flying solo for this episode, but don't worry, got a great guest lined up. You guys are really going to like this interview. I got Jim Dunaway, longtime Alabama radio host on the show talking SEC football, and he delivered the goods. So I really appreciate Jim joining the show and spieling here about the SEC. Hey, I couldn't go an entire week without getting you guys the show. We've been having some technical difficulties behind the scenes, so apologize for the delay. But right around the corner, man, we're going to be picking up big time with SEC Media Days, just a little over a week away. So you can only imagine the level of content that we'll have in the coming days and weeks. So I'm really fired up about that. But as I said, I couldn't go a whole week here because we've had some news around the SEC, so I wanted to jump into that. And then I've got a little bit of a fun show idea I thought you guys would really appreciate. So let's just dive right into what we got lined up for this show. And of course, the big news all around, not only the SEC, but college football, is this name, image, and likeness. If anybody missed it, kind of the biggest one came out of Miami, where there is a group down there prepared to give every single scholarship player, all 90 of them, they are going to be giving out $500 a month to each of those players, so $6,000 a year for any and all players that sign up to sponsor, and I think it's like a gym or something, but it's a Miami booster, longtime supporter of the Hurricane program. He's the one backing this, so this is kind of what we all suspected may happen, the first big domino in this name, image, and likeness. Every single Miami Hurricane player getting a sponsorship deal. And one of the guys that is behind a lot of this stuff, Florida lawyer Darren, I think his last name's Hatner, he is teasing that there's a Florida booster that is stepping up to the plate. So we're going to be getting pretty heated here with these NIL deals. So can't wait to see what the Gators got coming around the corner. But that's going to be something to keep your eye out on. And if you missed it, kind of the best NIL comments I've seen so far, Texas A&M running back / receiver Anaya Smith, he has shared that any and all name, image, and likeness deals that he gets, he's going to split all that money evenly, I believe is what he said, with his teammates. And you want to talk about getting the rest of the team fired up for your success. And, by no means are these players obligated to do things like this. So I think that really adds to the gesture here by Smith. But I also wanted to kind of expound upon that. And, maybe he's just a really generous guy. But I'm reading behind the scenes here that, this is kind of the culture that's established there under Jimbo Fisher, where, it's team first. And they really got pulling in the right direction. You see, I've seen Texas A&M media people commenting on Twitter, program's going to win a national championship in the next 2 or 3 years. And I've seen players react why not this year? They are really heading in the right direction there in College Station, and it's comments like these that kind of prove that to me. So Jimbo Fisher, a $75 million man, that's looking to be one hell of an investment by the Aggies, and I'm loving the direction of the program. One final thing on this name, image, and likeness, sponsorship, whatever you want to call it. I just thought this was hilarious. But Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral, he's a member of this website, along with a lot of other college football players. So I'm not just trying to call out Matt Corral here, but you can sign up for an hour with these guys to do, signings or just meet and greets or come to your party or what have you. And a lot of these guys are charging about $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour. If you want to hang out with Matt Corral, it's going to cost you $10,000 an hour. Oh my God. I don't know if you guys caught wind of this story a couple years ago, but if I'm not mistaken, it was Ole Miss TCU in the Peach Bowl. There was an Ole Miss fan there, and of course, they got hammered in that game. I think it was like 42-3, something like that. But an Ole Miss fan who was at the game, got hammered drunk, jumped into an Uber, a Lyft, what have you, meant to go back to the hotel room, passed out in the back of the Uber, but unfortunately, he put in the wrong address. He put in somewhere in Mississippi, somewhere near Oxford. So the cab took him from Atlanta all the way to Mississippi, racked up this huge fine. That's what this makes me think of here. I mean, I hope to God if you get Matt Corral, you don't accidentally sign up for 6 hours, because it may cost you $60,000. I don't know if anybody has paid this $10,000 an hour fee, but that's what it's going to cost you to hang out with Matt Corral. I just thought that was hilarious. But we truly are living in the Wild West here of this name, image, and likeness stuff. Who knows how it's going to be policed, if at all. It may not be. So each and every dollar these guys get, they probably deserve. So I'm not railing against it, but who knows what's going to come next. Like I said, it sounds like there's a big deal coming for the Florida Gators. If there's only one player that says, I'm going to go play for Dan Mullen in Gainesville over Kirby Smart because of whatever deal they got cooked up down there, you better believe the rest of the SEC, at least the teams at the top, at the very least, are going to be signing similar deals. So I cannot wait to see what's coming with this. But hey, enough about all that. We do got a little bit of news here in the SEC, a couple of transfers. So these are going to affect the upcoming season, so I definitely wanted to discuss these. Let's kick it around the league.
Now let's go around the league.
My daughters said something about me wearing a visor and need to put on a hat because I'm getting bald. So I'm going to wear a hat from here on out.
I mean, if you look over the next 6 years, I think we played Miami 3 times, Florida State 6 times, South Florida 3 times, Mississippi State once. So who's the SEC teams? I think it's an injustice for the kids. We should mix those games up, and you should, play more teams from the West.
Why don't you start calling around and see if you can get somebody else to play us, and we'll play them. We'll play anybody you can get to play us.
At Louisiana, hold on a second. Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay? Thank you.
All right, so right before I hopped on the line here, big news out of Lexington. Because former LSU starting left tackle Dare Rosenthal, we kind of touched on this in a recent pod. I heard he was trending towards Mark Stoops' program, and it's official. Dare Rosenthal headed to Kentucky. It's only going to add to the depth there on the offensive line. You're getting a potential day one starter there. Of course, Kentucky, they may have the best offensive tackle in the country in Darren Kennard. Now, might be able to team him up with Dare Rosenthal. We'll see what position Rosenthal plays. He can play some inside at guard as well. So, it remains to be seen where he'll play or if he'll even start at Kentucky. But I would assume a guy this late in the year, going from one SEC school to the other, is probably looking to start immediately. So, and he was projected to do so at LSU. He got, from what I understand, got in a little trouble off the field. He had been in a couple, nothing major, but a couple of times he's been in trouble. So missed some games last year due to suspension. Didn't want to be suspended this upcoming season, gets a clean start there at Lexington. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. So big pickup for Kentucky. And how about our buddy Adam Luckett there from Kentucky Sports Radio digging up this stat. Kentucky's got 17 scholarship offensive linemen on the roster right now. So that's incredible with the addition of Derek Rosenthal. You got to believe that's going to be a strength of the team. A player of his caliber getting on the roster there heading into the season. All right, next let's kick it on down to the Plains.
Get ready, Toomer's Corner. Auburn's coming to roll you. Final score, Auburn 48, Alabama 45.
Where, hey, Auburn adding some much-needed depth to the receiver room because former Georgia receiver Demetric Robertson has announced he will continue his career on the Plains. Robertson's got just 1 year to play as well. And, never really panned out for him at Georgia. But one of the fastest players in the SEC during his 3 seasons there, 42 catches for 443 yards and 3 touchdowns. Prior to being at Georgia, he was at Cal. Remember, he was number 1 ranked receiver in the 2016 recruiting class. Signed with Cal in 2 seasons, caught 57 passes for 837 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, was it a Robertson problem? Was it a Georgia issue? I don't know, but we'll see. Auburn certainly is going to need some guys willing to catch some passes from Bo Nix or potentially TJ Finley, and Robertson can certainly fill a role, add some speed to that receiver room, maybe be what they had last season in Anthony Schwartz. Someone similar, may not be as fast as Schwartz, hell, who is, but you're talking a guy with legit speed here coming into Auburn to that receiving core. I can't see how this is in any way bad for an Auburn program looking to add some experience and depth at that receiver position. Now, next, let's hop it all down to Rocky Top. Now, this was a little while ago. It's been a while since we recorded a pod here, but Tennessee gets some much-needed help. Potential day 1 starter here themselves in former Alabama defensive back Brandon Turnage. This was a guy that, remember, he was supposed to go to Georgia, and then they landed the former All-ACC cornerback Kendrick from Clemson. And as soon as that happened, whatever promises Turnage got there in Athens, I guess they weren't good enough. So he never did make his way to Athens, even though he committed to him. Now he's on his way to Rocky Top. And given the state of Tennessee's defensive backfield, there's some talent there. There's some players there, but none of them were as touted as Turnage coming out of high school, who I believe was a high school All-American. I think he played at 10 games at Alabama, but never a starter or anything to my knowledge. So, just a case of tough to get on the field at Alabama. It's arguably the toughest place in the country to get on the field. So Tennessee gets much needed depth in Brandon Turnage. Potentially, I don't think this guy's going to be a day 1 starter by any means, unless he really balls out during fall camp. But I could see this as a guy that is certainly going to be in the rotation. And by the end of the season, by the time he gets the system and gets to, familiar with the rest of his teammates and coaches, is a starter at Tennessee. So I think he's going to be fared much better than he would have in Athens or in Tuscaloosa, just from a perspective of being able to get on the field and playing for a program that just doesn't have the depth of those other two. So we'll see how that goes. But that's a big addition for Tennessee because they needed some defensive backs. They lost a battle with South Carolina for Prunty, the former Kansas corner. So it was pretty clear they were not totally happy with their defensive backfield. Now they get that shored up with Brandon Turnage, who I believe's got, if not 3-4 years to play. I think it's 3 years to play. So potentially a multi-year starter here. Vols landed in the transfer portal. And then last but not least, this could potentially be a big one here. Hop on down to Oxford, where the Rebels, they landed receiver Jalen Knox, formerly of Missouri. He jumped into the transfer portal. I don't think he participated in spring. I think he was maybe a little banged up or something, if I recall. But he's at Ole Miss now. Could kind of fill that Elijah Moore role out of the slot. He's more of a slot option, which Missouri was kind of stacked at, so I think that's why he left. And let's credit our buddy here, SEC stat cat Clark Brooks, who notes that Jalen Knox, 4th best success rate, 6th best first down or touchdown rate among returning SEC receivers. So he thinks he can fit that Elijah Moore role there in Oxford. And, Ole Miss has got a lot of talented guys, but maybe they were lacking that slot option. So Jalen Knox, I believe he's got 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. So this is an interesting one and a nice little pickup here for the Rebels heading into training camp. All right, guys, so one last thing I wanted to get to before we get to our interview with Jim Dunaway. It was a really outstanding interview. You're going to want to stick around for it. I saw this on Twitter, and I really wanted to kind of share my thoughts on it. But I want to give credit to Dr. SEC, who put out a tweet of the 4 SEC coaches going into their 2nd year at the program. Which one will finish with the most wins at their current school? So we're talking Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri, Sam Pittman at Arkansas, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, and Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Now, again, we're not saying who's going to win more games in the upcoming 2021 season. We're saying which of those 4 will win the most at their current schools. And that's such an interesting question because there's many different factors here. You got to look at, their records last season, for the most part, the same. I think you have to look at age, the age of all these coaches, and the likelihood that they're going to be there a long time. If one of these guys only averages 6 wins a season but is there for 8 seasons, he's going to be the winner. If one of these guys wins 10 games next year, maybe he bolts for another program, so he's obviously not. So a lot of different factors here when discussing a hypothetical like this, and I rated them from 1 to 4, and I'll just share my thoughts on it. But number 4, last on the list. I hate to do it because I think all these guys are great coaches. I cannot remember a time in the SEC where we hired 4 coaches and we got 4 winners like we got here. But I got to go Mike Leach, last on the list. And here's part of the reason. He's 60 years old. Oldest one of the bunch. Now, that's not the only reason. I didn't just go by age here because that'd be too easy. But, man, that SEC West is ridiculous. And I certainly don't think Mike Leach is in over his head when it comes to recruiting. That's not at all what I'm trying to say here. But it certainly seems like Lane Kiffin may have his number. Even that may be not fair to say, given we just don't have much data on the 2 of them going head-to-head in recruiting. But I think Lane Kiffin's so far looking like the better recruiter. Hell, they had so much momentum at the tail end of the season, but so is Mississippi State. The thing that kind of is holding me back here, because Mike Leach has, this, I may be talking myself out of this as I'm sitting here thinking about it, but he does have a track record of sticking out of place for several seasons. So he may be at Mississippi State the next 8-9 years. And if he's there that long, he's probably going to be tops on this list. But, what was, aside from the LSU game, what was the issue with Mississippi State last year? Now, I know maybe this isn't fair given all the COVID and shortened camps and no spring and all that. We all know that. But that offense, man, it held him back. And this is supposed to be our offensive guy. And we're flip-flopping quarterbacks, and now we're bringing in a Southern Miss guy when you got Will Rogers there, who I think could be one of the breakout candidates in the SEC. Now, of course, you got nothing behind him, so maybe you got to bring in a guy like Jack Abrams to at least be a quality backup there in Mississippi State. But if the offense was holding you back last year, and that's your baby, I don't know. That's not a great sign for Mike Leach in his program moving forward. Now, again, I think he's a hell of a coach. I think he's going to do just fine at Mississippi State. But, half this is the talent you got on your roster. And if they went 4-7 last year with, I think, the most underrated defense in the entire SEC. What's going to happen if Zach Arnett leaves and the defense starts struggling? How many games is it realistic to win? I don't know. But for me, Mike Leach, I got him last on the list. Number 3 is probably going to be a little controversial. Lane Kiffin. He's only 46 and went 5-5 last year. So he's tied for the best record of these 4 coaches. So he's in the pole position now. And he's got, age on his side. If he sticks at Ole Miss, for several years, which is certainly a possibility, he's going to be the obvious winner on this one. But how long is he going to be at Ole Miss? Can he stay out of trouble? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. With the Mary Flipness stuff, I love it. But I don't know how the rest of the SEC coaches feel about it. If they catch him in a bad spot, will they turn him in? I'm not saying that's going to happen. Not even saying there's anything bad happening there. But I can certainly see that coming. But here's the big thing that I could truly see coming. And I think an honest Ole Miss fan would say the same. What happens if Ole Miss continues to rise and Lane Kiffin is looking like one of the better coaches in the SEC and old Nick Saban retires? Is he really going to pass on an opportunity to go to Alabama? I don't know. I think that's your biggest concern. Now, hell, we said the same thing about Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee a couple of years ago. And his ass is probably never working in college football again. So, I may be putting the cart before the horse here, but I just don't have the confidence that Lane Kiffin is going to be at Ole Miss, 10 years down the road. Now, maybe he's a hell of a coach. I'm saying, and that's not a negative, I'm just saying he's such a good coach, he's going to have options. And his history indicates that he's willing to jump around a little bit. So, if you're an Ole Miss fan, can you really be mad if the coach leads you to glory and leaves? I know nobody wants to hear that, but hell, that's a lot better than having Matt Luke and having no energy and having to fire a guy, which is certainly not going to be the case for Lane Kiffin. So that's why I got him number 3. Number 2, Sam Pittman. He's 59. He went 3-7, so he's dead last on this list when it comes to current record. But I got the most confidence that in the years to come, Sam Pittman he's already said it. This is the last job he's ever going to take. He's already started to turn around Arkansas. The recruiting is going really well under his direction. He's hired 2 outstanding coordinators. So the man knows how to build a staff. But the key thing here is his age. And I know we look at Nick Saban and say, well, he's 69, whatever the hell he is, and he's not slowing down. Well, he's not a human being. He's a robot. Most men are going to start slowing down in their mid-60s. So can Sam Pittman continue to coach at a high level for 6-7 seasons? I think he can. And I think he will, and I think he'll stay at Arkansas. But, at some point, that's going to come to an end. And, again, you're in the SEC West. You're fighting these damn behemoths, not only on the field, but on the recruiting trail with Alabama and LSU and Texas A&M, and my God, you're just in you're between a rock and a hard place here. So it's very, very difficult. But I think I got the most confidence that Sam Pittman is going to be at his current school longer than all these guys. So that's why I put him so high on this list. And then of course, so there's only one guy left, Eli Drinkwitz, Missouri. He's only 38, went 5-5 last year. So if Missouri can hold on, kind of a lot of the same deal here with Lane Kiffin. If they can hold on to him, hell, imagine if Missouri wins 9-10 games this year. You don't think he's going to be fielding some calls? The difference here, I think, while Drinkwitz has moved around a little bit here during his young coaching career, that's very normal for assistant coaches moving up the ladder. And the only other head coaching job he had was Appalachian State. And we all know how I feel about Appy State, but if you're at Appy State and the SEC comes calling, you come running. And that's what he did. And I don't think he's a big enough name at this point, and I don't think he will be for a little while, to where he would want to leave Missouri. The NFL, I don't think, is coming calling for Drinkwitz at this point. A USC, they're going to sell to their fans, Missouri coach, no disrespect, but programs like that, they want flash. They want fans in the stands. And I just think Missouri and Drinkwitz, that's almost like a perfect marriage. That's their guy. He's so young. He was very successful his first year. I think, and their recruiting right now is number 4 in the SEC. Now, does that really matter in July? No. But, it's an indication of what's to come. I really do think. And like I said, they only won 5. They went 5-5 last year. Imagine if this season they win 8 or 9 games. What's their recruiting going to look like? With the way college football is going, just being an offensive offensive-minded game and the fact that they've got an offensive-minded coach, I think Drinkwitz got an outstanding chance to really be at Missouri as long as he wants. And I think he's going to keep winning on the field. And hell, he's almost half the age of Sam Pittman. So Eli Drinkwitz, for me, has got to be the answer to this question: which of the second-year coaches is going to be at their school the longest? I hope you guys appreciated that one. I'm sure I can hear the angry tweets being fired at me now from the state of Mississippi and Arkansas. But hey, I'm ready for it. But hey, enough of that. Let's get to our outstanding interview with Jim Dunaway, a longtime host of the Round Table on Jocks Radio there in Birmingham. And now he's got a new show called The Next Round that's just started up down there with the Round Table team. They all left together. They're starting up a new venture here. So let's kick it over to our interview with Jim Dunaway. All right, we're pleased now to be joined by the one and only Jim Dunaway. Of course, he's a longtime radio host with Jocks. Now he's got a new show coming out, The Next Round. Jim, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Well, Mike, I've been following you on Twitter for a long time. Big fan. So thanks for having me on with you finally.
Yes, sir. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the new show? I've been watching, you guys have been posting alien videos, and now you got a really good interview with, of course, the great Tom Luganbill of ESPN. So that was just posted. Can you fill us in on what is the new format for the show?
Well, that sums up our show. Over the years, back when we were on WJOX, 12 years together when we were the Round Table, and we just jumped on to a digital platform that we launched in August. And we're just, we were ready to have a little equity in the company, to own our own product. And this was the best way for us to do it. We're excited. We picked out office space. We picked out furniture. We were picking out paint color tomorrow. We're getting a set built, ordering equipment, doing all the stuff we didn't do when we did 4 hours of radio every day. So it's exciting. It's a little nerve-wracking at times because, we had a lot of security there with Cumulus Broadcasting all those years. And so this is very different, but we're fired up and ready to climb a different mountain. And we're ready for SEC Media Days, which is just a few days away, which means it's time to talk a little football.
Absolutely. Well, let's just jump right into that then. And, there's not many better in the state of Alabama to ask these type of questions. So that's why I really wanted to have you on, Jim. But first one, I got to ask you this. You probably get tired of being asked this, but how much longer is Nick Saban going to terrorize the rest of the SEC?
I've had a chance to host his coaches show many times, and I will tell you this. I get older, and it seems like he gets younger. He seems to be younger now than he was when he got to Tuscaloosa. He's an amazing individual when it comes to a work ethic. Nobody ever outworks Nick Saban, and that includes the people on his staff. I'm not doing that as a shot against anybody else in the coaching profession. He's a guy that will outwork everybody that's on his coaching staff, in his football building, and everywhere. And that's how he sets the tone for the program. And until that changes, I don't see him going anywhere. Everyone thinks Coach K or Roy Williams and coaches like that are running away from the name, image, and likeness and what is the future of college athletics. I don't see Nick Saban running away from that. He's been very out front on, wanting it to be an all SEC schedule. He's been out front wanting to expand the playoffs. He's been out front saying, if we're not going to expand the playoffs, let's make sure we're protecting the bowls. He's been out front on everything. And when you've got some coaches like my buddy Dabo Sweeney, who was not in favor of name, image, and likeness to start with, Nick Saban says, hey, if that's what you guys want, he never tries to push an agenda. He says, if that's what everybody wants, he'll adjust to that. And I think his ability to adjust is why he is still thriving at Alabama right now and coming off another national championship.
Now, of course, he signed a contract extension this offseason. He signed through the 2028 season. If you had to predict, do you think he coaches, through the end of that deal?
Well, it's a wild card with your health, but as long as he's healthy, I could see him coaching through 2028. I don't know how it ends, though. I don't know how the final chapter of Nick Saban's time in Tuscaloosa ends, but I'll be the first to tell you, when Alabama was getting ready to play Notre Dame down in Miami back in the day. That would be the 2012 season. I was one of those people that was hearing very strong rumors from my friends who worked at the Cotton Bowl, who were Texas alums. They were saying, we're after Nick Saban, man. He's going to win that national championship and come to Austin. And I believed it, man. I back then I thought, Nick Saban could win another championship, his third in a short period of time, and then bounce off to another challenge because he loves the new challenges. And he didn't do that. He's still here in 2021, getting ready to make another run, coming off of another national championship. So I don't know how the final chapter goes. He's not the kind of guy who I think would walk away from a contract, but I would imagine there'll be some contract left, some years left on a contract, whether it's this one or the next one, when he finally decides to hang it up. But he's a guy who, there seems to be things that continue to, sort of rekindle the fire. And I think last year with him missing a game because of COVID-19, the restrictions that were on you, I think he really realized sitting around the house a lot that that's not where he sees his future, is sitting around the lake house riding his boat. He loves boating. He loves being at the lake, but I think he loves coaching football a lot more. So I don't know how it ends, but I don't think it's any time in the next couple of years.
Now, we all know Steve Sarkisian did just a tremendous job there with the Alabama offense. Now they've got Bill O'Brien coming in. In your opinion, will that prove to be Alabama downgrading, or is it possible that they've even upgraded by landing a very, successful NFL coach?
Well, that's where it starts. Bill O'Brien was a successful offensive coach in the National Football League, and then he was a very successful head coach. He was a horrible general manager. Mm-hmm. So as long as Nick Saban's not letting him trade away John Mechie or Evan Neal for first-round picks or something like that, then Alabama should be okay. But the guy's a great offensive mind. I love Steve Sarkisian. I thought he had better nuance at play calling than Lane Kiffin did when Lane was there. I love the way he draws up plays. And I think Sark, this time around as a head coach, more mature, personal life in order, will be a huge success eventually at Texas. So I hate to see Sark go. But I don't think Bill O'Brien's a downgrade. I just think it'll be very different. And it'll be very different just starting off with the fact that the quarterbacks will be different. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll get a little bit of what you saw with Jalen Hurts in this offense. And who better to coach Bryce Young than the guy who had been coaching Deshaun Watson? And, Deshaun Watson's a mountain of a man, and Bryce Young is not. But their skill sets are a lot alike. Bryce Young can escape out the back door of a blitz and burn you for 14, 17, 20 yards, and before you even know it. And that's what Deshaun Watson was able to do. Strong arm and the ability to escape a pass rush. And if you leave the quarterback uncovered, Bryce can beat you. That's what Bill O'Brien's been coaching Deshaun Watson at with the Houston Texans. And I think that's a great place for Bryce Young's time in Tuscaloosa to start with a guy like Bill O'Brien.
Now, I'm glad you referenced Bryce Young, because I wanted to ask you, what's the expectation down there for him this year? You kind of answered that a little bit already, but as I see it, he's the betting favorite right now to win the Heisman out of the SEC. Is that a little ridiculous, considering he's never even started a game yet?
Yeah, there's no pressure at all, right? Mike, you just told him he's going to win the Heisman. If he doesn't win the Heisman, it's a disappointment. Look, I'm looking at my Lindy's magazine last night, and Matt Corral is on the first team All-SEC, and JT Daniels is on the second team. And I pull up my Athlon magazine, and you got JT Daniels and Matt Corral. That's where the quarterback conversation starts in the SEC, whether I'm reading my Athlon or my Lindy's or my Phil Steele. But everybody gets to Bryce Young eventually. So, yeah, he's got a lot of pressure because there's perceived talent around him. Here's where it starts with Bryce Young, though, is Evan Neal is back, but a lot of first-round and NFL skill set players on their offensive line is gone. You look at Alabama traditionally, A.J. McCarron, Greg McElroy, they could set and let receivers run through zone 1, zone 2, and throw it to them in zone 3 and never get a hair on their head touched. Bryce Young will be behind a very talented but inexperienced offensive line, and that's where the first chapter in the Bryce Young story will be written. And that also is where his legs will come into play and the ability for him to run the football. That's why I think this looks more like a Jalen Hurts freshman season offense than what we've seen most recently with Tua and Mac.
If there's one game on Alabama's schedule that you think is going to give them the most trouble this season, is there one that stands out to you?
Yeah, I would circle at Texas A&M for that game, October the 9th. The Aggies, they would tell you they didn't play a great game last year. Let it get away from them at Bryant-Denny Stadium. That was their only blemish. But I think the Miami game will be challenging because you have so many new parts and a new quarterback. And Miami, they won the transfer portal this year, so that'll be a fun game. The trip to Florida will be a fun game. You look back at the SEC championship, 52-46, and you have a lot of people that left at Florida. But to me, Emory Jones looks a lot like Dak Prescott. So that game will be fun for Alabama. I think Ole Miss, what was that score? I mean, it was 1,000 to 999. It seems like, as I remember that game, that's going to be a fun game. And, if Matt Corral, if he's not the best quarterback in the SEC, he's the second best. And I don't think anybody gets under Alabama's Pete Golding or Nick Saban's skin better than Lane Kiffin does at drawing up plays. So that'll be a fun game. LSU is going to have a great bounce back. So the schedule is a lot more difficult than people want to make it out to for Alabama, and it's really difficult early. I mean, before you're out of the first Saturday in October, you've already played Miami, you've already played on the road at Florida, at home to Ole Miss, and October 9th you go on the road at Texas A&M. That's a challenging early part of the schedule when usually Alabama's schedule is back half heavy.
Now, I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you've thought about this before, but a couple of off seasons ago, Gus Malzahn ultimately, we all know he picked Bo Nix, true freshman, to start there for Auburn, when he had a guy on the roster, Malik Willis, who's been tearing it up for Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Do you think picking Bo Nix over Malik Willis, that ultimately ended up costing Gus Malzahn his job?
Well, a lot of things cost Gus Malzahn his job, and beating Nick Saban wasn't one of them. Auburn is one of those jobs where if you somehow are on the wrong side of the right people, you never get the footing you need to be successful there. And, Pat Dye is a guy that, God rest his soul, one of my favorite coaches of all time. He's the kind of coach that Auburn needs. The I don't care guy. We're going to do it my way guy. And they may have that in Brian Harsin. I really like Brian Harsin a lot. Bo Nix was a 5-star quarterback. Bo Nix, I said when he came out of Pinson, the day on National Signing Day, I said on our radio show, I said, hey, this guy, I think by his junior year will be a finalist for the Heisman. I don't think he wins it, but I think he'd be a finalist for the Heisman. And we're going into his junior year. We'll see what, Bo has around him. But that talent level hasn't been up to the level of Alabama. And it's not up to the level of LSU's national championship. And it's not up to Georgia's level. It's not up to Texas A&M level. And I think ultimately that's why Gus Malzahn lost his job. He had some great recruits like Tank Bigsby. He didn't have enough of them to stay competitive with the Georgias, the LSUs, the Texas A&Ms, and the Alabamas. That it's not Bo Nix. It's not a Bo Nix problem. It's an overall roster problem that cost Gus his job. But Gus is going to thrive at UCF. You mark my words, the guy will be a hit at UCF. And you probably have not seen the last of Gus Malzahn in the top 10 or on a national stage.
Now, you referenced, of course, the first-year coach Brian Harsin. He also brought in offensive coordinator Mike Bobo. Do you think they can maximize Bo Nix's talent? And what's the realistic expectations for Auburn going with the first-year coaching staff?
Well, I would tell you, I think Mike Bobo, he played the way Patrick Nix, Bo's dad, played. He coaches offensive football the way Patrick Nix played and the way Patrick Nix likes to coach. So there's a lot of similarities between Mike Bobo and Bo Nix's dad. And who's been the biggest influence on Bo Nix's style of playing football? It's been Patrick Nix, the former Auburn great from the 1993 and 94 seasons. So I think the reason Mike Bobo has that job is because Mike Bobo and Patrick Nix think a lot about offensive football, and I think that will fit Bo Nix's comfort level a lot better than Gus Malzahn. So I do think it is a good move for Bo Nix that there was a coaching change. I think it's a good move that they hired Mike Bobo. And I think Brian Harsin knew what he was doing. Again, talent level matching the elite of the elite is going to be the problem. But Tank Bigsby may be the best running back in the country. And you've got some really great talent on that defensive side of the football. Can you find enough playmaker at wide receiver, and can Bo Nix take that next step? That will decide the difference between Auburn winning 7 games or Auburn being a contender in the SEC West.
Now, I'm sure you've seen the story out of Miami with the the boosters donating or sponsoring, whatever you want to call it, basically every player on the roster there to the tune of a little over $500,000. You hearing anything that we could see something similar in the state of Alabama with the Crimson Tide or potentially Auburn?
I don't know if it's going to be one big lump sum like that, but in this the way everybody thought it was going to play out. I personally thought that you'd have 25 booster-owned companies that would eventually, and I'm not speaking Alabama Auburn, I'm speaking all across college football. Mm-hmm. Throw in UAB, throw in Vandy, whoever you want. You'd have 25 business owners who are alums of State University, and they would, basically adopt a recruit. And for 4 years, they would, name, image, and likeness. They would, buy jerseys and, do car ads and all that. And then, another recruit would come on and you get that guy for 4 years. I don't see a problem with it. I think it's, the money may change a little bit. There may be more money available, but I think we all believe in our heart of hearts that there's been a little extra going on in college athletics since they were dropping hay bales off of trains back in the 1900s, right? Stuff a few $100 bills and roll them off the train on a ranch for a big running back in Texas and try to get them to go to College Station. It's the way I pictured recruiting in the 1920s. And I bet it hadn't changed much over the years, just the way you get the money to the recruits. Now we're doing it on the up and up. And I like it. And if some big booster who owns a car dealership wants to sponsor a left guard to do commercials for his car dealership, and that left guard gets a little money out of it, and a school gets a good left guard, I don't see where anybody's getting hurt.
How much pressure is going to be on Kirby Smart if Georgia does? I don't know if they have to win the SEC. I think they're going to be a huge favorite to win the East, but at least make the college football playoff. Is there going to be heat on him if he can't deliver that this year?
Well, let me pull out my summer pool magazine again. Last night, I think the headline said something like Georgia chasing Alabama. Mm-hmm. Georgia with the talent to win the national championship. So yeah, I mean, Georgia's not far off. And I'll remind you, JT Daniels is unbeaten as the starting quarterback at Georgia. He hadn't lost one yet since he started. So that team is really good. But I will look at most first-round All-SEC teams. You may have JT Daniels as your quarterback. A lot of people have Matt Corral. Some people will have Zamir White in as the number one first-team All-SEC running back. I personally go Tank Bigsby. I personally go Isaiah Spiller over Zamir White. I don't have a Georgia receiver that would make my first-team All-SEC. I don't have a Georgia offensive lineman that would make my first-team All-SEC. I don't even have a Georgia kicker anymore that would make my first-team All-SEC. So what I'm saying is Georgia is going to be built on another great Kirby Smart defense, and can that offense, with a really good quarterback, be good enough to be national champions? And you look at, I think we all believe in DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson. I think we all believe in Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. I just assume Ohio State and Ryan Day will have somebody. We think Alabama would be pretty good offensively. So now, if you're Georgia, defense wins championships, the old cliche, but Nick Saban told us last year that it changed a little bit. So you got to play some offensive football, and hopefully Kirby, for Georgia's sake, moves that offense into the 2021 scale and not try to keep it in 2011 Alabama.
Now, I really wanted to ask you about LSU. Do you think the team this year is closer to the 15-0 2 years ago, or closer to the 5-5 team that was a huge disappointment last year?
I think it'll be closer to 2019 than what we saw last year. And I think that starts with the fact that you've got a new defensive coordinator, right? You bring in Jake Peets, and he's going to come in there, and he's going to be the guy that sort of cleans up what Bo Pelini did last year. And you try to tell me what Bo Pelini was doing in that first game. I can't tell you. He stayed in man-to-man in Mississippi State and ran them off the field. And I'm not sure that LSU ever recovered from that game. They won some games down the stretch. They played better football before it was all said and done. But when your only wins are over Vandy and South Carolina, who are not very good, at Arkansas, they beat a good Florida team, and then they beat a pretty good Ole Miss team. So they played better late. And I think eventually Bo Pelini was just off his rocker last year. I think it starts with better defense. Derek Stingley Jr. is unbelievable. And I really liked Miles Brennan at quarterback before he was hurt. Max Johnson had some bright spots down the stretch. I think LSU's Jimmys and Joes are just too good not for them to be better than they were last year when it's all said and done this year.
All right, last question for you, Jim. I really appreciate all the time you've given me. But, last year we had 4 new head coaches in the SEC, and I think you can make the case that, all of them very good hires. Sam Pittman at Arkansas, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, Mike Leach, Mississippi State, and Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Which one of those 4 do you think will win the most games at their current school? And I'm not talking this year. I'm just talking, staying out and staying at those programs for the rest of however long they're there.
Oh, man. I think Sam Pittman will stay there the longest of all those. Mm-hmm. If you ever listen to the show, there's a good chance I landmined him right there. But I think they love him, and I think maybe he did the best job, relatively speaking, of anybody last year. They were very competitive and could have won a couple of more games like at Auburn. Mm-hmm. Leach will win some games. I don't know if Lane Kiffin can get into this conversation because I feel like Lane has one more move in him to a, not a Texas-like job, but to a job closer to a Texas job. And then Eli Drinkwitz, I had a chance to talk to some of the Alabama coaches as the season progressed and before they went to the playoffs, and they were really impressed with week 1, what Eli Drinkwitz and his coaching staff did to Alabama. And if you go back and see what Alabama did the rest of the year and go back to that game 1 and watch it again, Missouri did a pretty good job, heck of a job against Alabama. So you're right. All 4 of those are good. I'd put Lane dead last. I would put Mike Leach because he's in the West. Sam Pittman. I'm going to go with Eli Drinkwitz gets more wins of all those.
Oh, congratulations. That's the correct answer. He's Jim Dunaway.
That worked out good.
You got to give him a follow at Jim Dunaway and check out the new show, The Next Round. Follow it on Twitter, YouTube, all the platforms. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with in your inaugural season. Jim, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, and Next Round Live on all the social media platforms, Next Round Live. And I enjoyed it, and I'm ready for SEC Media Days, and then let's kick this thing off.
Just want to say thanks again to Jim for hopping on the line. I thought that was some outstanding insight into Alabama, Auburn, and the rest of these SEC teams. He's a very, very entertaining guy, as you can tell. And if you like that, you got to check out his show, The Next Round. Links to where you can find all that is in the show notes. Highly recommend. Give Jim that follow. Give The Next Round the follow on all the social media platforms and check them out. Let's support what they're doing over there at The Next Round. But hey guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I apologize once again for only having one episode, but like I said, you're going to get prepared to be hearing a lot of us here in the coming days with the SEC Media Days right around the corner, the unofficial start to the SEC season. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to keep getting these interviews lined up. And hell, who knows, maybe Cousin Shane one of these days will hop on the line. We certainly hope so, but I know he appreciates each and all of you as much as I do. And of course, if you made it this far, as always, give us that 5-star written review on the Apple Podcast app, and we're willing to send you a beer koozie free of charge just for that review. We've got all 14 SEC teams covered. So if you send that review to us at that SEC Podcast at gmail.com, we're very happy to send you our beer koozie in exchange for free. I don't know anybody else that's doing that. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great weekend. Catch you on the next one.